Now, fishing the pellet waggler has got to be one of the most exciting ways of catching fish for like the general course fisherman or like me, a match angler. Today we're faced with an open water peg, and I'm going to show you everything you need to know about fishing a pellet waggler in open water. I'm going to show you the tackle, the rods, the reels, the line, the floats, how to feed it, and definitely when to make the changes and get the most out of your sessions. So let's get this one in the net, and then we get on with looking at some tackle. Okay, so let's have a look at the rod, reel and line. What I've got to start with, I've got a 3000 Aventus on there. Nice, like matches up with the rod nicely. For main line, I've gone for £6 Pulse Pro. Now I know a lot of people are like going down the road using these really like light main lines, but I just can't stick it. The way I strike, I have tried it and I just end up banging it off all the time. So £6, plenty enough guts in that for playing fish, casting, you're going through a lot of work. Now rod-wise, something I've found myself using more and more, especially on these smaller lakes. This isn't a huge lake, although we're fishing open water, we're only going to be fishing, sort of 25 metres, just where I can group my 8mm nicely. So I'm not going to be casting to the moon, so I don't need a really long rod for that. So what I've got, see there, I've got a 10-foot Aventus. I absolutely love these little shorter rods. I find casting is so much more accurate, so much nicer when you're playing fish. Just everything about it feels nicer. Don't get me wrong, 11, 12-foot rods have got their place. Big open waters, we're chucking big wagglers. I'd go use my 11-foot in that situation, or even a 12. So that's the rod. Now, one thing I have done is I've got 2 foot there of 0.25 fluorocarbon. Now, what I've noticed is where you're moving your stops up and down and you get an odd little wrap over, like when your line will wrap around your float and it'll give an odd kink, that tends to be where it breaks. Like any time I've ever like struck and hooked a carp and it's broke, I always come back with 2 stops. So obviously it's getting damaged around that float. So what I've done, I've just got a simple loop to loop. So there's my £6 main line there, a loop to loop there, and then that's 0.25 fluorocarbon. So that'll be nice and stiff. So what that will help with, because it's quite stiff, you won't get those wraparounds as much, and also it'll help turn your rig over, so it'll help flick your pellet past. So I've just got a simple setup, 3 stops, 1 above, 2 below. I don't want too much on my line. Got a little waggler swivel, and then I've got 2 foot then of 0.25 fluorocarbon, loop to loop, and then I've just got a 12-inch hook length on there. That's 0.19, like nice, strong, durable gear. There's some big fish in this lake, so I want to make sure I can get them out. My favourite hook for this kind of fish, and I used to use these all the time, then I stopped, and then Robbie Taylor put me back onto them, and I can count on one hand how many hook pulls I have with these. These are brilliant. That's a 16 SMWG. I've used 14s. I know Robbie really likes 18s, but like a 16 to me is perfect when you're fishing with like an 8mm. And you can fish a 6mm as well. I just don't get hook pulls on them, so I'm super confident. Little bait band. They were all just tied up nice and neat, look. So that's the setup. Nice short rod, small reel, strong line. So next, let's check out the floats. So when it comes to pellet wagglers, there's absolutely millions on the market, and a lot of it is personal preference. There's a lot of people who make like handmade wagglers, but the shop bought ones are really good as well. Obviously, I'm sponsored by Guru, so I use Guru ones, but like I said, use whatever you like to use, whatever you're confident in. What I've got for the session today, I've got a couple of 3 SSG ones, and when the wind drops, just these little small 2 SSG ones make a tiny little plop, and they can be deadly. Like you'll be fishing away with that bigger one, catching a few, put that tiny one on, you'll chuck it in, you'll have a tiny plop and your rod will just pull straight. So it's always worth having a couple of different sizes. I have got an odd bigger one if the wind really gets up, but for today, the wind is over our shoulders, absolutely perfect. And what I've done to connect them, you can see that there, I've just got a shot either side. I've got a little corded D-ring on there, so I can clip my little swivel on and off to change my floats. They're really simple to make, those little links. That's just some 0.30 drag line doubled up. So I've just doubled it up, put that little link on, pinched the shot on, and then I've just scolded the end of the line with a lighter, pushed it against the shot, and they are perfect. So that's the style of float. We've got a couple of bigger ones there, and what I've done as well, I've been playing around with these new tungsten Olivettes. So I've done a couple with them because they are super small, and just the way they sit like that, keep that, hopefully, keep that line away, stop you getting wrapped over. So I've got a couple there to try today. They're going to be the main ones. I think these will be the mainstay of today, open water fishing, but we've got those little ones there just in case the wind drops and we can chuck it nicely. Or what's nice with these, if you see an odd little cruiser mooching around, like shorter, you can just whiz in, clip a little tiny one on and stick it on his nose and hopefully get a big bonus one. Also, just as important as floats with pellet waggler fishing, a good catapult. Now, there's a couple of things to look for. First, which is really, really important, is a hard plastic pouch. That just helps you group your pellets really, really tight. And as in any kind of fishing, whether you're fishing a pole, a bomb, whatever, tight feeding is really important. You're never going to get it on a dinner plate every time, but if you can get it as tight as you can, you will definitely catch you a lot more fish. And what I've got there, I've just got the black elastic in that one. I've cut it down a little bit. I haven't measured it. I know some people measure elastics and stuff. I haven't. I just sort of, when the bottom of the catapult, like that, sits in the pouch, I know that's about the right length. So it's a rough guide for you. That's the black one. There's a nice bit of guts, but what's nice with that is I'm not like stretching the guts out of it. I just want to be like, you know, almost just like lobbing your pellets out there to get them nice and tight. And then that's just on one of the light frames. Just nice. You can hold that nicely. It's not big and bulky. For what we are doing today, up to sort of 25 metres, that's absolutely perfect. So don't forget that plastic pouch, really important. And then a nice durable elastic, because you will go through catapults like the clappers, especially when it's a hot day and the sun gets on the elastic, it'll wreck them. So that's the floats, that's the carty. One last thing we look at is the bait, and then we can get on and do the most important thing, getting bent up into some sows. So let's check out what we're going to use for bait. So when it comes to bait, pellet waggler sort of gives the game away. We're going to be fishing pellets. Today, what I've got, these are the Fishery 8mm, and they're not a very big pellet, you can see there, but they're just perfect size for these kind of lakes, small lakes. I'm not going to be, like I said, I'm not going to be fishing a million miles out, so as long as they go sort of 25 metres in group, I'm super happy with that. Like, I'd be happy to use these, you know, sort of, it's weather weather dependent, up to 20 odd metres, but if I was going to Barston, Larford, what I tend to use then is I'll use the cell, mainline cell, like Carp's 8mm. What you can do with them, you can group them a lot better, get the distance, so you're not fighting with your catapult and like pulling it right back trying to get them out there. It's just nice, just flick them out there, lovely. So anywhere, like, obviously where rules allow, a lot of places today is fishery pellets, but you can still go to Barston and use them. You can go to the Glebe, that's another one. You can use whatever you want there. So if I'm going to be fishing a little bit further, I'll always go for those like mainline Carp-in style pellets, those bigger pellets, give you that distance, but more importantly, group them super tight as well. One other thing, so what I'll do, like most of the day, I'll just be fishing with one of them in a band. That's what you're feeding, that's what the fish are eating. But what I've always got with me, you've seen it before in these videos, I've just got some cell 6 and 8mm. What I like about them, look how light they are. Just a nice contrast to the dark ones we're feeding. So every now and then, I'll just pop one of these on, a 6mm or an 8mm, and what I really like to do with these is if I do see a cruiser, I'll just whip one of these on quickly, flick it on them. 9 times out of 10 you can catch them on those light pellets. I know some people like fishing with red ones, like Robin Reds and that. To be honest, I've never really had much success fishing red pellets, so I just tend to stick to what I know. Some light ones for the hook, and then whatever you're feeding with them in the band as well, be it fishery pellets or your own brand that you'd like to use. So I think that's all the bits and pieces covered. Let's start feeding a little bit of bait. Might take a little bit of time to get our first one, but I think when we get one, we'll get a few. There's a few fish topping now, I can see already. So let's start feeding, let's get some competition in the peg and get bent up into one. Right, time to start. I'm just going to start off with a Fishery 8mm in a band. What I've got just got my little front rest set up there, just so I can be hands-free if I need to. So I'm just going to flick that in, put the rod on the rest, and I want to feed 2 lots of pellets. I'm going to feed like 6 pellets twice. I've got my far bank marker, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold the pouch in the same position, which will be close to my chest, and then just push forward with the carty. And then just dink them out, like that. And what I've done, I've started on that smallest float. I've had a little chuck, and this one seems just about right to start with. So I'm going to punch that out quite hard, stop it, let it all turn over. There's a fish to swirl on the float then. And what I'm always like cautious of is keeping that line tight between my float and my rod top. So that's why you want to punch it really hard, stop it, flick, let the pellet turn over, then your line will all be in a straight line. So that was an indication there. I think we might have to already shallow up. Let's just have one more chuck like this. I've started at 3 foot. I know this lake is out there, it'll be 6 foot. So I'm starting half depth. I didn't expect them to be up as quick as this. So again, I'm just gonna 2 lots of pellets twice. There's a bit of a wind about now, so it's a job to group them, but that's pretty good. And then punch that float, stop it. So you can see all the line is nice and tight now behind the float. So I'll just let that sit there for a second. And now what I'm going to do now, oh, there's a twitch. I didn't get to even show you that then. There's a few eyed about out there, I think. So again, just going to feed, this time just feed 1 lot. Punch him in. See how that pellet is landing past the float? I'm sure that fluorocarbon helps that. Now I've got a bit of a bow in my line there, so what I'm going to do is just flick the tip, turn the handle really quick, get that line straight behind the float. I don't want a big bow because all you're going to do then is just miss a shed load of bites. So I'll just let that sit there a second, and already that line is creeping, so again, just a quick flick the rod up and turn the handle as your rod tip is up in the air. Take up that slack. Now, no bite that time, so I'm just going to put the rod on the rest. A couple of pellets. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to shallow up because we've missed 2 bites. So I'm just going to take a foot off of that. And then work our way shallow if we need to, but also we can go deeper. So again, before I go out, it's just about like consistency with your feed and just keep them plopping in out there. Punch our little float in amongst them. That line is lovely and tight now, and a lot of the time what you'll find when you've got them going, your float will land, because your line is all tight, the rod will just raise up, they'll just hook themselves on it. So just leave that hang there at just a second. Straighten it out again. And it's pretty much just a case now of just doing the same old thing over and over again. And you'll find you'll just get like good little runs. You'll catch 3 or 4 in 3 or 4 chucks, then you might have to just, you know, flog the guts out of it for 15-20 minutes before you get another. But that's just the nature of pellet waggler fishing. So there you are. So that wasn't my best cast in the world. I pitched it too high. You can see there's a bow there. So I'll just quickly straighten that bow up. And I'm not going to leave it in there too long. Sometimes on this lake you can get them by hanging it there, but to start the session, I just want to make sure I've got plenty of pellets dropping through. I want to work hard at it to start, catch a few, and then you can sort of work out the best way to catch them. And all the time I'm keeping my eyes peeled. If you see an odd cruiser swimming by, you've always got the option of just flicking it with this little float. You can just sort of Under Armour in front of a big old unit that's cruising past. But for now, we'll just keep going on as we are. Oh. How about that then? That's what you call a little Brucey bonus. I just flicked my waggler just under my feet as I fed, and a carp has grabbed it. You can't believe it, can you? So whilst he's on, just ping a few more out there. You just can't believe fishing sometimes. Stuff like that happens. What's going on? And it's a big one as well. And now look, now that we haven't got a float in the water, there's a carp in our pellets up there. So what you're going to do, you can just jam your rod butt just in under your arm like that. Got your hands, there's enough tension there, you've got the drag, and then you can just keep flicking a few out. Because I don't want to leave it too long in between feeds. I want to give them a reason to stay there. Come on, you boy. Look at this, look. I've got a little short handle because I left my handles in the house, but we got him. Oh, that's a beast. That's what you call a Brucey bonus, if ever I've caught one. Whoa now. Now what you've got to watch when you get one in the net is just watch your waggler, because when they go start thrashing around, you can drag your float in and smash your waggler up to bits. So you just want to be careful of that. Oh, he's well hooked too. How is he just taking that there now, the guy? That's annoyed me a little bit. Now that right there is a Pellet Waggler carp for you. So back to the scheduled programme. Pellet Waggler fishing out in the lake. And then out we go. That's right in amongst them there. That little bit of wind just caught that, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep an eye on this wind. If I keep getting these bow in the lines all the time, I'll just put a heavier float on. That'll just help keep everything nice and tight. So I'm not going to give that too long before I whiz it back in now. Bring that back. But it's nice just having that rest in front. I can just sort of drop my rod there now. I'm hands free to feed. And then that's, you know, it's there for that more than anything. That was a bad cast there. So if you have a bad one like that, I'm not going to leave it in there. What I want to do is fetch it back. There, that's better. Like punch it in there. Get that pellet to flick past my waggler. There we go. And that one almost just pulled the line straight. You know, he'd have been on whether I struck or not that fish then. So what I'll do, I'll get him in sort of close around my feet. And if I feel like it's, you know, taking a while to get him in, I'll just pick that catapult up like we did just now. Just start pinging a few back in again. I never want to leave it too long. I want to just be consistent with my feeding. Just plopping them in, plopping them in. This is going mad now, see, and this is where you want that proper gear. So he's going to be mad. So what I'll do, I'll flick the back wind off. So if he runs, he's got to go against the drag, and then just a couple of pellets. Yeah, nice fish. Like even these little squeakers in here fight like stink. There we are. There's one. That was just nice, that was then. Just feels like the peg's starting to kick into gear now. So like an odd sign of a fish there. It's for fish blowing. And every now and then when you feed, you see one swirling your pellets. So it's just like pellet waggler fishing, exactly the same when you're fishing shallow on the pole. A lot of the times it's about, you wouldn't necessarily start on it, it's about just building it up, getting competition in your peg. And then, you know, sometimes it can take half hour, sometimes it can take 2 hours of feeding. Sometimes, you know, the last hour they might just turn up. But one thing is for sure, if you don't keep that feed going in, they're not going to show up for you. So just keep it going in there, keep flogging away at it. don't just leave it, don't just chuck your waggler out there and just leave it hanging if the bites aren't coming on the hang. If they're coming within 10 or 15 seconds, it's the same as fishing a bomb. When you've got your little stopwatch going, if all the bites are coming at 4 minutes, there's no point leaving it in there for 15 minutes. The waggler the same, but everything's just a little bit quicker. Oh, it does feel a nice fish. There's some lovely fish in this lake. And there he is. You might be wondering why I'm using a super short landing handle. I wish there was a good reason for it, but the only reason is I left my landing handles at home. So I've had to go up the shop and buy a nice little $7.99 model, 1.8 meters long. So it might be a bit of a lunge to get him, but he's in the net. So what I'm going to do, I'll keep everything on a tight line there now, just to keep our float out of the net. Because if they goes in the net and they start twisting up, these foam wagglers, they'll just smash them to bits. But that's a nice fish hooked. Just in the corner of the mouth there. That hook was never coming out. There he is, look. Nice white springs. Fully scaled there. So straight away now, I've caught that fish. The first thing on my mind, feed some pellets. Just keep them going in. It's not about hammering loads in. It's just about consistency, like 4 or 5 pellets twice. Just pick one out for the band, that one. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to shallow up a tiny little bit more again. I'm just going to take like 6 inches off the depth there, so we'll be fishing. We'll be sort of 18-inch deep there now. I just feel like some of these fish are above us. We punch him in. And what you'll find is, like, after you've been playing one and you've been feeding it with no rig out there, a lot of the times your next chuck in after catching one, you catch another. Just because they're sort of primed and waiting for you. Just twitch that back into those pellets. Right, I'm going to try a white pellet this time. I feel like I should be catching a few. There's fish all over us out there. So let's put like a big 6mm. So he's a lot paler than the other one. There's a fish there now, so I'm not going to feed him, I'm just going to chuck it straight into him. That's it. Let's see if that'll make a difference. There we are. Straight away that was, look. First chucking on that white pellet. So already by going deeper, we had that one fish get away with it, and we've got one, and the change of a hook bait. There's something about those white cell pellets, they're brilliant for this. And I tell you what they're really good on is the bomb as well, when you just feed in like normal pellets. And fish one of them on a bomb. Yeah, little one this time. Come on, bite. There he is. Still a decent fish, £3 or so. Here's look. Little fighting machine. that one just pulled the line then. I just sort of twitched it, kicked the pellet up a little bit, and then everything just locked up. That's still on that 6mm. So I'm going to stick on this for a little bit. But again, once he's out there potching around, just try and keep attention on him. I don't want to leave it too long before feeds again. So once he's there now, I can keep a nice tight line on him. A few pellets. And I think now is the time. I'm just going to clip this little float off. Get off. Just put a slightly bigger one on. That's a 3 SSG now, that one. And I take a little white pelt off, back onto a normal one. Let's see if they'll just sort of hook themselves against that float a little bit better. If I can keep that line nice and tight. The only thing you've got to watch with this now is I don't start chucking it too far. Obviously there's a lot more weight in this float and it's easier to chuck, but it'll want to go further, so I want to keep everything in that feed. Better. There we go. Now that's the thing with those heavier floats, that line was so tight behind that float then, plus you've got the weight of the float. He's just hooked himself again. Oop. So it's about having, you know, a couple of different sizes. Like today we've only got 2 sizes. I don't think you need anything else than that. Like I wouldn't want to fish a heavier float because we're not chucking far enough to need one. And it's not windy enough. You know, if it was super windy, you put a heavier float on again just to try and keep that bow from happening. But as it is now, like a 2 SSG and a 3 SSG is just about right. So hopefully we'll catch a few on this now, and then if that wind completely stops, we'll pop our little float back on and keep catching them. There we go. That was absolutely perfect. Just as that float hit, I just thought, that's gotta go. Just managed to feather that float in just a little bit nicer that time. Float landed, pellet flicked behind it, bang. All went tight and we got another one. This is where this little 10-foot rod is brilliant for these small still waters, I guess. It's like fishing a short kit when you're fishing for F1s, just everything just seems like more compact and more efficient. A little fighting maniac, that one. There we are. Here's luck. Just pop him back. As always, the conditions have changed again and it's gone absolutely flat calm again. I just feel like that bigger float is going in with a little bit too much of a bang for my liking. So what I'm going to do, back on with a little float, just as it's calm now. I think now is the time just to put that float on and try and make the most of this little period where the wind has dropped. I think this little float is the way to go where you can, but obviously it's distance and conditions depending. So just flick that little float out. Just goes in so much nicer. But one thing you don't get as much with this is when they drag the line tight like they have done on that bigger waggler. So just flick that up, leave it hang there for a second. Ooh. See that went then. And maybe on that bigger float that would have just hooked itself. Plop that in there, that's absolutely money. That's got to be a bite. Oh, that's nice in there now. That's going to be a bite, that is. Come on, then. That is perfect. I think this float is just perfect when the conditions are like this. Just twitch that. There we go. On the twitch, that one then. And one thing's for sure, he's not happy about it. Come on, boy. Yes. Where's he hooked now? Oh yeah, nice. Right in the corner of the mouth, that one. So as you've seen today, it's like it's a lot of trying different things to keep your catch rate going. You know, we've got a few twitch in it. We've got a few on the splash. We've got a few going deeper, going shallower. Just keep them going in. There we are, on the splash, that one. I think that just shows how good that little float is. Like if I was like, you know, 2 pellets going in there, and then it just all goes super tight. I think I'm going to make this my last fish now. I hope that's inspired you to do a bit of pellet waggler fishing, that hopefully there's plenty in there for you to take away with you and put into your own fishing when you're faced with open water pegs like this one. Don't forget, a couple of different size floats, get the setup right. That little piece of 025 fluorocarbon has been amazing today. I haven't had a single tangle on it. So that's one thing I'm definitely myself going to take forward into more of my fishing. So I'm going to net this one now, pop him back, and I'll catch up with you on another video.